back.
So we're just supposed to state our sins for like
That's what
1,000
this sounds
people. This
Well,
is insane.
Can we pause the podcast and turn it back on?
So I know that's why I said we can shut down this question.
Hey. Well, welcome back to All Good in the Brotherhood. We are recording today from our dining room at home, actually, the family home that we grew up in.
Yes.
And we have our parents here, which is why we're doing it here. So,
Yes.
Mom and Dad, hi.
Mom and Dad have both been on before, but not been on together. So
True.
we know them as Mom and Dad, or other iterations of that. But other people know them as Dan and Kathy. We don't call them that 'cause that's just weird.
Well, Nate does sometimes.
Do you actually?
Occasionally I call Dad Dan as a joke. Yeah.
I didn't think I knew that. So they are, I guess probably, as this comes out, celebrating 35 years of marriage. So that's pretty baller.
On Monday, actually, is our anniversary.
Yeah.
So it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So excited for them. If they hadn't been celebrating that, we wouldn't be here. So it's pretty cool. So today, what do we want to talk about?
Well, I think since we have them here, we should probably talk about things related to our family. Actually, spoiler, that's why we brought them here. We want to talk about family, life in general. We want to talk about parenting. And you guys have some experience in parenting at this point, over 30 years, so you're more experts than either of us are. But also we want to talk specifically about parenting adult children, or what it feels like to adapt from parenting kids when they're young to when they start growing up. So do you have questions on that?
Yes. So first, how have you guys experienced the change of relationship with us as we all come into adulthood? Now that Nate has officially entered into adult status, you guys don't have any kids, your own, that are children anymore.
Yeah.
You got the grandkids now, so you're reliving a little bit of that, but it's a very different relationship as grandparents. So what's it like having adult children, and how have you navigated that transition? How do you feel about it? Do you notice it, or at all?
Well, I suppose the good thing is it doesn't happen overnight. So, it's a gradual process, and each one of you are different. So each of those journeys look different. And of course, with the oldest, kind of figuring everything out as you go. So that's probably difficult for Sarah. But I guess, there's not a one size fits all, so it's different with each one. And depending on your choices of, things that you guys are interested in and what you do, and, choices that you've made, then that kind of forms the relationship, I think, and, the direction of the relationship. So sometimes it's challenging, and other times it's just, wonderful to watch. So I don't know if that's more specific if you're looking.
Well, we can start with generals, and then maybe I can ask some that brings more specifics. Dad, what about you? How have you experienced that change, and what has it felt like to you? And what dynamics have you noticed that are different?
Thanks. I think this is a great question. So I think really more from when you're young, kind of telling, to now asking for me. So like showing you how to do things, doing them with you, but always kind of being the guide for that. And so Mom homeschooled, as you've brought up in your podcast numerous times, and it's what a beautiful gift that was for our family, for you, for all of us. But as a kind of the other things that aren't necessarily in the academic part, showing you how to dribble a basketball. And now you guys all smash me at basketball, so that's good.
I don't know about that.
No.
But it's okay. With your education, there's things that I'm learning. I sit with you guys, and Mom too. When Nate was back home on break, and you'd be home, Tom's home, we have conversations that that garner a lot of learning for me. And and I just really appreciate that a lot. So the dynamic really, like I've said this before, as John the Baptist said, I must decrease as he must increase. I feel that way. Not like I'm decreased as a dad, but probably say less. I should be saying less and learning more. And you guys have helped me with that. So, yeah, I think that's a big thing. And that interaction, the relationship, I think you've recognized that. And I think that strengthens our relationship because it's now this more of a two-way communication than a one-way communication.
Right.
Yeah, so let's flip it to our end. How have we felt? I'll let you go first. Like that change as you've gotten older, Nate. I agree with Dad that two-way communication definitely seems more equal because we have two-way conversation as we grow up,
Yes.
but it's definitely like talking up and talking down. Not in the talking down like condescension, but you're our parents, right? So you do talk down to us by nature. So Nate, how have you, I guess, experienced or seen that? What has that change been like for you?
Yeah, I would say the same thing Dad's said, but from the opposite perspective. So it has been kind of cool to go from the age where your only role as a child is learning and kind of when it comes to interacting with your parents, you're just taking in the information they can give you to now when you start getting older and learning your own stuff that maybe they haven't gotten the opportunity to hear themselves. You can actually share information with them, and like you said, it's more two-way. And what's really cool about that, I think, is especially if you have maybe slightly different perspectives from your parents or slightly different opinions. I think when you're young, especially on the simple kind of things that parents are trying to educate their kids in when they're trying to raise them to be healthy and safe, that it's never a good idea probably for the kid to have a different opinion from their parent when they're like 4 years old. Like if the parent says you're gonna eat broccoli and the kid's like, no, I don't want to eat broccoli, I just want to eat candy all day. Well, that's not a good opinion to have. So in that case, like you're actually gonna get sick if you just stuff your face with chocolate, and you do need broccoli if you want to be healthy. But then you get older and you get into maybe more complicated things or things that have more nuance in them, and then you realize, oh, I can have a different opinion from my parent, and I can share with them why I have this different opinion from them, and it's not necessarily a wrong one. So that itself, I think, is kind of cool. That not that I have widely different views from you guys about anything that matters, or that we're getting into a lot of arguments that I'm trying to convince you of stuff, but it is cool, especially having gone to school and changed in some ways the way I think about things. It's kind of cool coming back and having these discussions with you guys where you guys have input and now I have input too, and they're not always the same.
Right.
But what about you?
Yeah, I think a big thing for me has been, especially like either in spiritual direction or just like as I know and learn more about myself, finding aspects of you and you, both of you, in like my personality or in the things that I say and do. And now it's not just like, oh, that's what I do, that's what I say, or that's whatever. It's now I have started to ask myself, like, okay, like, are all of those behaviors or characters that I do want as part of me, or am I? This was just natural, but I actually do think I like or dislike things more or less than I realize. Maybe I don't want to act like that, or maybe I don't want to think like that. Not in like, oh, that was oppressive, how dare you make me act and think like that. But we're like coming into my own personality more and realizing like, okay, that doesn't mean I have to be exactly like mom and dad. And then as I come into that, I think I appreciate both what you guys have taught me, but then also like the difference that there still is. And then especially like conversations in college, I didn't really have a lot of opportunity as much to talk about like my education because like biochemistry doesn't loan itself to fun table dinner time conversation. Or if it does, everyone's just kind of like nodding. Everyone's just kind of nodding like, that's nice.
Well, I feel like one of those memes with a just big question mark over my face.
But now being in seminary, that's definitely fostered like really good conversations. But the dynamic of but kind of being the teacher now, like you guys being our teachers, but now learning a lot of stuff that, I really enjoy being able to like teach again in a different, but it's weird. I almost feel like, oh, do I, like, is it, arrogant or egotistic of me to think like, well, I know more than my parents about this, so I should tell them. So I guess it all comes with intention, but when it's done well, and when I'm not trying to just show off, but rather like, I think they would appreciate this. I've thought that it's been a cool dynamic.
No, absolutely. And I think it's well received. And for both of us, we've had conversations when you weren't around that, you know, how awesome that was. Sometimes Nate would come home from college and share. He could share the things from college for his education.
Yeah.
And,
different there.
But then on the whole, when we get together as a family, I've said this to people at work, it's really awesome being with all of our family members because we all like each other. Of course, we all love each other, but we also all like each other. And it's fun to be around. We do both learn things. We go home driving by ourselves home or whatever it might be, talking about it. Like, I didn't know about this, I didn't know about that, but that's so cool. And now I understand this something that why I might be tending toward this thought or that thought. And I think your mom's said similar.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just been, you know, kind of fun. I mean, it's exciting to see, you know, the different gifts and talents that I saw when you were younger and how those have, you know, come to fruition. And again, you know, each in your own individual way, like the different things that you've taken on and, you know, how you approach, you know, new things that you're doing or even, you know, thinking of doing like this podcast, you know, like it's so cool, you know, but so I think especially because you all are quite creative, each one of you, but it's, you know, you each have different ways that you're creative and different ways that you have used that creativity and imagination too. And so I think that's really, really cool and just kind of exciting to see where that will continue to go in the future. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dad.
No, the one thing you made me think of, Kathy, thank you for saying what you said, because, and actually all of this, you know, 20-some years ago, we moved from California to Pennsylvania. And I was raised in California. The sky almost always is a pale blue, at least where we lived. And we lived in the desert.
Now it's basically always a dull gray.
Okay, so a dull gray. But it was always a pale blue. It wasn't like a vibrant blue. And got used to all that. Then we went in the Navy, lived out there raising kids, then came out here to Pennsylvania. Now the sky very often is a brilliant blue. There's clouds in the sky. They're beautiful. And just the whole sense, I feel like personally, and then this way, as you guys have grown older, went from kind of being dull myself in a way, and I'm not trying to, you know, deprecate, just kind of product of the environment almost, to like, I drive down the highway and look at these clouds and I'm amazed at them. The sense of wonder has changed tremendously for me, both because of our location where we live, but also because of the things that Mom brought to homeschooling, you guys got interested in, and all four of you kids have kind of locked into this sense of wonder. And it's helped me have a sense of wonder that I am so appreciative of. So anyway, there's just something I've thought about before, and whatever you said, hon, made me think of the same thing. So yeah, like I love looking at the clouds. They're incredible. We get leaves that change colors. It's incredible. Yeah. I didn't have that kind of sense of wonder growing up. It was like, that's green.
It's all cement.
Or it's dead.
Yeah, it's maybe harder too in some of those environments. But
growing up in LA, I can understand why you're not wondering at anything. I mean,
yeah.
But I had a great childhood. I'm not.
Yeah, I just
it was
the scenery.
Phenomenal. My parents were awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is cool that childlike wonder is something that's contagious, especially because it comes right around the same time. Like, hopefully, you know, right around the same time your wonder from being a child is wearing off. Hopefully by the time you're set up to be a parent, and then you can have a kid, and then they can share it back with you again. Because I don't know, it's kind of cool that that's happened in some ways with seeing now the next generation of our family, with our nieces and nephews, that you know, now that we're old enough that we no longer really do some of the childlike things anymore. We don't play with toys. We don't just have as much pleasure just poking around in the woods. Like we still have a fun time.
Yeah.
We love the outdoors. We love kind of kid sporty activities. But it is kind of perfect timing in my mind that right around the time we're starting to worry about more adult things. Now there is a new generation coming in that restores that sense of childlike wonder that can remind us of the things we used to appreciate. And so then it kind of, you get to repeat the cycle in a way. It's kind of God's built-in way of going back and renewing your sense of wonder. And you see that even with like things like Christmas, right? It's like when you're a little child, Christmas is a very magical thing. You have ideas of Santa Claus and you see the snowfall and it's all amazing. But then you start getting older and you look at the holidays as more like just a busy time of year that can sometimes be stressful, or especially if you're a college student, you have finals, that's kind of all you're thinking about. And so the magic of the season starts to wear off, but then right in time for that, and then you get to see, hopefully in a good family, a new generation coming in to kind of replace what you might have lost.
That actually kind of connects to the second question I wanted to ask, which was, now that you don't have any young children of your own, I mean, obviously, again, Philip, Gemma, Ellie, and the new one, again, living a bit of that again, but is there anything you guys miss about not having young children? Like, whether it's Christmas mornings or...
I'm sure there's things you don't miss about.
Yeah, there's that too. Well, maybe both. What's something you miss and something you don't miss? Go
ahead, Ann.
Yeah, just the energy. I think the energy, and I realize that when we see Philip and Gemma, like getting up in the morning and just that enthusiasm and zeal for not anything in particular, just because.
Yeah.
It's a new day.
It's a new day, and what are we gonna do? Or I get to play with this again, or so just. Yeah, I think the energy and anticipation that young children have for, just whatever's next. Yeah, so, because we just, you have a routine. I mean, you have to have a routine in family life, but then there's always that element of surprise, which is not always good, but, then things never get dull. So, sometimes... it's quiet, so we get in a routine and not as much energy.
Yeah, even if you foster a routine with kids, it seems like they don't get as easily bored by monotony. Like, they find ways to make each day interesting. For better, for worse. Like maybe it's in a chaotic way, but they always find a reason to be excited each morning. Yeah. I know, growing up, I don't feel like there were many mornings where I'd wake up and feel tired still. I would wake up and pretty soon be ready to go and do whatever the day had in store. But now I'm talking like I'm old, but I'm still only 21, but already so many mornings when I wake up I'm like, I would love to sleep a little while longer. And that's one of my first thoughts. But
I was thinking similarly, because with campus ministry I'm often up to 11 or 11:30, and I wake up at 6 for morning prayer. And nowadays I'm like, it's only 6 hours, sleep only 6.5 hours. But in middle school and high school, I would be, and I know my mom and dad did not like this, but I would hide a light in my bed so I could read. And I would often read until 2 a.m. And then I'd be getting up for morning mass maybe 5 hours later.
Yeah.
So, and it was
and you wouldn't feel tired.
I was never tired. I didn't need to take naps. Now if I get less than 8 hours of sleep, I'm dragging. I need to take 3 naps, or I want to anyways. Yeah. Philip the other day, I was taking a nap, and he goes, Uncle Sam, why are you sleeping? Because I'm kind of tired. He goes, but why are you tired? I'm like, well, because I'm not 4, buddy. Anyways, Dad, what about you? Anything miss and don't miss?
Yeah, both. What I don't miss, your parents, whether we want to or not, we're always thinking about you guys, and I'm sure there are times where we maybe worry more about you guys as we've gotten older. But for the most part, the necessity of security, making sure, where are they? when you're little, we go somewhere, and you know, tracking cats, making sure that. So that's why we have 2 cats, so we can continue that feeling. But just looking, you know, always trying to make sure the zone is clear, and kind of feel free of that. Sometimes when I think of you driving home along the way and it's late at night, or you know, when Sarah was doing that in the winter, going to and from, when she was up here going down to Pittsburgh, I'd probably lose a little sleep. But for the most part, though, I'm comfortable with what you do and where you're at. So you know that you're okay. So that I'm happy. I'm not at that place anymore. Something I miss, though, is going out in the driveway and, like, on a Saturday, knowing that I can play basketball with you guys. And Mom saying when you were younger, homeschooling, hey, can you take them to the Y today? Or it's Sunday. I know what that means. I'm taking them to the Y today. So I would always have fun, but it would also be a break for Mom. So, I miss those times for sure. They were, they'll always be in my memory as a great time.
And some of those, it seems like, have been replaced by other things that are also really good,
Yes.
but that just keep us busier. So, like,
Yes,
I seem to think we have more on our plate than we used to. And I mean, obviously we're spread out, so that's one reason why it's harder to just do those spontaneous things like we may be used to. But also, it seems like when we were younger, we maybe had less busy lives. There was just more time for leisure. And I guess that's part of growing up itself, is like just having a more structured life. And again, in some ways that's very good, because it's hopefully filled with a lot of good activities and useful things. But it doesn't leave as much room for those kind of childlike activities that seem to happen way more frequently when you're younger. But did you have something you were going to say?
Well, you kind of answered what I was thinking. You mean all of us, right? Not just our adult children.
Our whole family,
but Mom and I.
Right.
We've said the same thing. We feel busier now than we ever have, and running sometimes
even though you're
behind
technically
schedule.
empty nesters, but
how are we doing this? How are we balance? And usually we're making everything. We're not missing stuff most of the time, but we feel like when we're juggling more.
Yeah. Which you wouldn't think that's the case when you are in the category of what they call empty nesters. You would think that when you have 4 kids at home, each with their own activities and programs to go to, that's the busiest point in your life. But it seems from my perspective like you guys are busier now. And, I mean, we're all busy, but just with different things. So it's wild.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, it was definitely more busy on a daily basis when you were home. And
That's true,
homeschooling
yeah.
With all the activities. Now, you know, a lot of it focuses on the weekends, but, you know, I think a lot of it is too because we've been blessed, you know, because of your work, that we can afford to do things now that we really couldn't when you guys were growing up.
That's true.
So, you know, vacations and things, going places, very often were things we just really couldn't do as much of. And, you know, also, you know, our family as a whole has grown, like I was saying, and our interests and things we're involved with have changed. So, like, you know, the Apostolate for Family Consecration, you know, we've become more involved with that. So that's one of the areas that, you know,
Takes a lot of your
keeps us busy doing things. And but just, I think, having a lot of relationships. I was thinking about that the other day. A lot of it is because of relationships that we have, and trying to maintain those relationships within our family. That takes a little bit, you know, going out to California to see you because you couldn't come home, you know, going to visit
All the work you made for them.
you know, going to visit you from time to time at the
Yeah.
monastery, you know, and getting together with Tom and John, with everybody. So it involves a little more travel and planning and things like that. So more concerted effort to do things, maybe. So, but
Yeah, I agree.
Sam, do you have another question?
I do, unless you have one.
No.
Okay, so you can feel free to answer this one or not, because this is now kind of like going a little bit more into the nitty gritty.
When you say nitty gritty, do you mean specific or edgy?
Or cringe.
It really can all depend on your answer, I suppose.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But
Worried.
Same.
and we'll answer from our end too. So it's not just forcing mom and dad to answer a uncomfortable.
He's gonna like
question.
ask them
This
like
way.
what their least favorite thing is about each of us kids.
Yeah,
Not this way, like one.
that actually would be kind of a
it's
fun
4.
question, but I don't think we're gonna answer
no,
that.
maybe we shouldn't.
Not on camera, anyways.
Yeah.
No, but so I'll pose it to them, and then I'll pose our version of answering the question.
Okay.
So now that you have adult children, and you've been parents for 32 years, there's probably so many memories of times of like when you had to be the parent, you know, whether it's discipline or like high moments of, oh, they got this award. But so we'll start with less desirable question. Then we'll end with the more fun one. Anyways, if you would be willing to share a moment where you, or a way in which you did not live up to the parenting that you now look back and like, I really should have either taken care of that situation better, or that child at that time in their life better, or said certain things more often. I know you guys have both said that like saying I'm proud of you is like kind of a weird thing for you guys because we're taught that pride is a sin, but what does it mean? And I remember one time, Dad, you said like I should have said like I'm proud of you guys more often, and I don't think I really needed to hear that more because I definitely knew it. But so on our end, like that wasn't a bother to me, but you clearly thought about it. And so from our end, then the question we'll answer is like, what is a time that we really can recognize as times where we were like just absolutely garbage children?
Yeah.
And really could have given them a lot more time, due respect than they deserved. Now looking back,
So we're just supposed to state our sins for like
That's what
1,000
this sounds like.
people. This
Well,
is insane.
Can we pause the podcast and turn it back on?
So I know that's why I said we can shut down this question.
Hey.
I just I have found that in the episodes where these kind of conversations come up, Tom and I had a conversation about brotherhood similarly,
people relate to them
and
better.
I got so much positive feedback. People like, hey, these aren't things that are normally talked about in a public forum.
Yes.
And the fact that you do, I had a couple guys say like I went and called my sibling or like went to a friend.
Yeah.
That like stuff that we just never took care of. I decided I'm actually going to do something about it now. So
A lack
You're
of
good,
privacy makes for good podcasting.
that's
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, open up the world. So
I'm just kidding. No, it's not a bad question. But
yeah,
Mom's
we can
ready.
start if you want, or you can start. I don't care.
Which way do you want to do it? You look like you're ready to say something.
Well, I mean, it's not too hard when you think about. It's funny because, like, living in California and then coming here, it's almost like two separate lives, sort of, because we were around different family there, and you guys were really little, and you weren't even around, Nate. So, you know, that was different. Those were kind of the easier years before school starts, you know, because then you have, I don't want to use the word control, but I mean, you can manage things easier when everybody's home and with you, and you know, and then like Sarah and Tom went to school, public school for a couple years, and that, you know, made it more challenging because there's outside influences that then start to come into the family that you have to deal with. But then, you know, even though it took a couple years to make the decision to homeschool, it was still all like uncharted territory. Really, it was not something that was on my radar. So every year from the beginning was almost like starting new, you know, because especially the first few, and you know, gosh, probably at least the first 7 or 8 though, I would get to the end of the year, sometimes before, and I just tell Dad, I don't think I can keep doing this. I don't think I can do this anymore. You know, just a constant worry, like I'm not doing this well enough. I'm not doing this right. You know, so yeah, that brings challenges. Yeah. So.
those are, I guess, more just like worries that you had, right? But is that
Yeah, but
really
when
what
you're
asking?
when you're in that situation, then you don't necessarily manage things the way that you would want to, because if there's a lot of emotion, you know, involved in it, that you know, concern, and not feeling like, I know, especially when we were here in the first few years, there wasn't other homeschool families, so there wasn't like someone to look to kind of
support
you know,
network.
mentor you along the way, and as our family went, we were at the older end, so there weren't other people who are like, okay, when my kids got to middle school or high school, you know, these are the kind of things we did. And so it was just like figuring it out year by year. And, you know, each of you had different, you know, abilities and gifts, and then maybe areas that were challenging for one reason or another, whether it was an actual academic thing or maybe a discipline thing. And so not knowing how to navigate all those well, you know, resulted certainly in times that I did things badly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was like, you know, responding to those challenges in like negative ways, you know, emotionally, just acting out of, you know, frustration, which a lot of time was with myself because I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fair.
To control the few things that seems like are controllable. It's like, well, if your frustration, you're seeming like you're mismanaging, it's like, well, I don't know if I can control more of that, but here are the seemingly factors, whether it's this child's difficulty here, or they're running around too many places, we're just going to cut that out, or just going to tell them no. And I'm not thinking of specific things right now, but just that, well, I can control those things.
Yes.
But then instead of controlling that well, or managing it well, then it comes out of like the, right?
Well, especially like, you know, you try something that doesn't work, you try something else that doesn't work, you try something else that doesn't really work, and then it just kind of like, I don't know what to do now.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, then not acting prudently, I guess, and then, you know, that has a lot of negative effects.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
You have something, Dad?
Sure. Unless you guys want to go.
No, go for
Okay.
it.
So I would say being in the present moment
Mm-hmm.
is probably, and still is, but not nearly as bad as it was, I'd say. So in confession, I've talked many times about like repeating things that were said from the past and laying them over what I'm doing now, or laying them over what's happening now, or projecting words that are going to be said to me in a conversation that are unkind, and then getting upset. My demeanor ends up, I'm not a yeller. My demeanor changes, and I either am quiet or just not I'm certainly not charitable. So I say all that because during those years, the same years Mom's referring to for schooling, I could have been more present to the family in helping with school. Mm-hmm. I allowed myself to not be in the present moment, thinking about things so often. Like, it was pretty bad for a while. I don't know how long, but thinking about things from the past that, and try and bring them into the present that shouldn't have been. Mm-hmm. And I had a hard time clearing that garbage out. It wasn't for the grace of the sacrament. Mm-hmm. And I had a hard time clearing that garbage out. So don't feel like I was always present for you. And I can say this, I know I'm sitting in the same spot here. Somebody might have talked to me in the evening at dinner about something that happened during your school day, and I caught, maybe 30% of it. Mm-hmm. And like afterwards, I'm like, what's my problem? Why am I keep doing this? This is about your child you love. Why are you not listening? Why are you not listening to them? Mm-hmm. Giving yourself to them. Mom's been with you all day long, and I'm not going to give you 5 minutes. So I'd be so angry with myself, but not angry enough that it didn't let it continue.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so anyway, I think that's a big thing. I still can get into that sometimes, but I know what to do now when that happens. Mm-hmm. The priest one time told me. So he said, I went to confession. This was probably like 8 years ago. We're out at the Bryans, visiting the Bryans in Southern California, and went to the Abbey.
Oh, the Norbertines.
Norbertine Abbey. And so I made my confession. He said,
they're really good
confessors. Are you old enough to know what a record player is? I said, yeah, Father, I'm 50-something. And he said, oh, okay, good. He said, Did you ever play a record that had a scratch in it? I said, yes. It keeps hitting the same spot. I go, but you can hear what's being said. And then,
Yeah.
he said, that's what you're doing. You're playing a record in the same spot over and over. And when you put that image in my mind, that's really good with, imagery helps me a lot. When you put that image in my head, now I know, like, it's simple. When you are listening to a record, you take the needle off of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been able to take the needle off a lot sooner. And he gave me some prayers to pray. But that was now after you were probably in college at this point.
It was 8 years ago, yeah. I would have been in
So
college.
That's a long time
Mm-hmm.
that I was allowing that record to keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't. Your mom would say, would you just please be present? I'm like, what are you talking about? But I didn't even get it still.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
maybe simple to understand, but not to execute necessarily.
maybe.
I mean, the power of,
So
if they're,
that's
especially if they're
my
negative
biggest
things said
regret.
to you. I mean, they say psychologically, it takes 3 positive affirmations to potentially counter 1 negative one, and they're
And
saying
from the
more,
same person,
more probably actually 5. And they say that someone who loves you or supposed to have a good relationship with you can be like 5 to 10. So if, and maybe I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, but almost like I need to be able to like either overcome what's been said to me or like have like the positive affirmation that those person are wrong before I can like fully invest in like the new thing today. Because until that like past stuff is taken care of, like
Feels unresolved.
how could I possibly like fully enter into this? I feel like I'm being like fake because I actually have all this stuff going on. And that's the whole thing where one of my he was my novice master, but later I was just talking to Father Joe in confession about something, and he said, yeah, the devil's favorite weapon is just to make you look at yourself. It doesn't matter how you're looking at yourself.
That's for
Either
sure.
look at yourself in like, I'm wonderful, I'm amazing, I'm better than all these people, or I'm horrible, all these people said these things to me, it's probably true, I can't get over it. And he's like, either way, his goal is achieved. He's made you looking at yourself and not at anyone else or at God. And whichever one works, he's just going to stick with that. He's not going to make a new tactic because, like, why bother? He said, but that's the fun thing about him is he is really uncreative. He said, so if you can, like, come back with, like, affirmations of, like, well, no, you're dead wrong here over and over and over again, and search for the clear affirmations that people give us. Though they might seem indirect, we often want like the direct, I want you to say this one specific thing about this one thing that I want affirmation in, rather than like they've told you in countless ways how you've been helpful or good. And then scripture, that's the other place. The number of times that, Israel, the world continues to sin and God justifiably could do something, and instead he's like, well, no, I'm going to remind you of who you are, rather than being like, well, I'm going to remind you who I am, which is a God that can destroy you. So like, I'm going to tell you again that you're my son, Israel. So
Something you mentioned there, and Mom had mentioned the word creative. That's very funny. You happen to say that about how uncreative the evil one is. That's exactly how now when I look at it, where I feel like, not in the present moment, and I wasn't creative for you guys. Like, let's go play basketball, or let's go throw the football around, and these things. That doesn't help Sarah a lot. Right? She doesn't care about. She would play basketball with us because she was just awesome. But that's probably not what really would have helped her. And so I had a lack of creativity in my not being in the present moment. Period. And I feel some of that's. I think a lot of it's changed, but now you guys are grown, so it's just for Mom and I. And But at any rate, that's I'm just saying that because Mom mentioned that word and you just said it again, and that was the word I was thinking of to begin with when you first asked the question. Not being creative enough. I thought, why is it not being creative? Oh yeah, because you are not in the present moment.
Well, it is never too late. That's one great thing about you said, that we still like each other. I mean, we're still in each
This
other's
is
lives
true.
very clearly. So it is really never too late to like be more individual. So, anyways, we'll take
All
the
right.
attention away
Your
from
turn.
you.
Please
Do you have something?
take the mic.
Kind of. It's like still forming. What about you?
Oh, kind of same. I don't really
Okay.
have it locked in.
Okay.
Just
Speak together at
speak,
once.
speak
then.
through yours.
Speak through mine. Okay. Yeah.
I think it's a little different depending on where you were, like, you know, the oldest or the next.
Oh, that's
and
very
being
true.
The
That's
a
youngest,
good
and
point.
the youngest of three, you know, having two older brothers, you know, that two for you guys, probably.
Right. I guess I could go.
Go ahead.
I think in the first 2 years of college, I kind of got used to being on my own and just doing my own thing. And so my whole schedule revolved around me and what I wanted. Because, like, I mean, I think it's natural as a college student. Like, you have your needs for one thing, but also your wants. And between those two, you kind of just schedule everything around that. And you plan your day around that. And so it becomes, in a way, just a self-centered life. Not always necessarily in an unwholesome way. There's some amount of obviously self-care that's required in a good routine, but also just attention to your own self-needs. But it can go too far sometimes when the only person you're considering when you're planning your day or determining your actions is your own self, rather than the needs of other people around you. And so I think for like a year or two of college, I kind of got caught up in that, and that I would just think, okay, what do I need to do today? I need to do this and that. Or what do I want to do today? I want to do this and that. And then I would just do those things. And then, you know, I'd move amongst my friends and interact with other people, but I wasn't really worrying about what they were doing or how I could be helping them. And so I think when I'd come home from college, that kind of carried over, where I would just be thinking, okay, yeah, today I feel like doing this. And so I would prioritize my own desires. And then I would realize, oh, I could have been helping mom in this way, or I could have been more considerate to dad in that way. And then you guys might bring up those things, even in gentle ways, like, hey, could you be doing this? And then I would get frustrated because I'm like, what's this person trying to infringe on my life for? But it's not that you're infringing on my life. It's just that I allowed my life to kind of enclose around mostly just my own priorities. So, I mean, I know I still am working on that, but that was definitely, I think, a way in which I failed for a while, is that I, just through habit, just through habituation, I made myself kind of the master of my own time too strongly. And so for one thing, it wasn't, when I say master my time, but a lot of that time was wasted time. And I wasn't always doing productive things, but it was like, well, it's my choice. I get to choose to be unproductive. I get to choose to do stuff that I don't even necessarily care that much about, rather than having someone else tell me what to do with my time. And so, part of that was probably maybe a rebellion after being homeschooled and basically raised in one household for my whole life. Then kind of wanting to break out and feel free, I went to the other extreme and thought, okay, well, now I'm going to do what I want with my time. But it is selfish. So
Yeah, in ways, yeah, absolutely. And that's the natural aspect. I do think of like the first times of growing into college, though, too. It's especially how you relate when you said come back, that kind of changed. Because I know for me, certainly, going to college the first couple months, I was like, let's frickin' go. Like, I can stay up as late as I want. No one's going to tell me otherwise. I'm getting good grades, so it's not actually affecting any of this. I can be with any of my friends of my choosing. No one's going to tell me otherwise. And not that I was choosing like a bunch of bad friends, but if I wanted to, I could have. And it was kind of like this, and I remember at one point, it was probably only like 4 weeks in, like I was talking down the phone, he's like, yeah, I think your mom and I might come out like next weekend. I'm like, why? Like, I'm just starting to have friends here. I don't want my parents crashing this.
Yeah. We visited you a lot your freshman year.
Yeah,
Yes.
we did.
Probably a lot more than you would have wanted.
And I think, actually, I think junior year, so sophomore, junior year, I remember, like, I think talking to Dad, and you're like, hey, I really miss you. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But I don't have time to come out home or for you to come visit. So, like, just kind of wait. And I know that would kind of upset you, I remember. And you're like, well, is there a chance? I'm like, no. This is like definitely kind of the same thing. Like, no, I've got my time. And if I have any free time between studies, like, I'm picking it, you know? So, not to say that, like, it condones it or anything. But, yeah, it's
natural.
It's natural, but it is also a selfish attitude at the same time. So
also, I think I'm glad that you brought up the idea of missing people or not missing them, because I think you and I tend not to miss people that strongly.
I agree.
I know some people in our family miss other people strongly. I know Sarah will text me throughout the school year being like, oh, I miss you, buddy. I'm looking forward to seeing you. And I obviously love my sister. So, you know, in some sense, I feel the same way. And if other people, like I know Dad, sometimes you'll say, you really miss us guys. And Mom, you'll say on phone calls that you're really missing us. And so, yeah, and I love both you guys.
Sure.
So in some regard, like intellectually, I know like, oh, I would like to be with them. But on an emotional level, I just don't really miss people that I'm not around that much. For most people,
Yeah.
every now and then I have those feelings, but I think you've told me in the past
Yeah,
that you feel the
it's the
same
same,
way.
yep.
So it would be sometimes funny at college, like someone would be like, oh, I miss you. I'd be like, oh yeah, like me too. It's like, and it's not that I don't like you. It's just like I don't really feel as strongly that same sentiment. So
But
It'd be
yeah,
hard to
and I know,
relate.
and that's definitely a place where I like kind of failed a little bit, was like expressing, even if I didn't feel it, what I really meant. Because like sometimes like, well, I don't really feel like I'm missing you. I'm not really like needing to go home or seeing everyone, and that was kind of relayed sometimes in conversation. Like, oh, I mean, that's okay. I don't really want to come home. I don't really need it. But anyway, so to think about my particular, what I was thinking about for me, it's kind of like, I guess it's sort of a twofold thing. And I think it rounds out in a different way, like how all four of these areas actually are like rooted in a different form of pride. Was especially in like probably late high school, kind of like a shift of more radical independence of like, I don't really want to tell my parents a whole lot of anything, like what's going on other than like accomplishments. Like that was kind of the only thing I wanted to tell you guys. It was like, oh, I did really well here, or I did really good in this track race or volleyball or school. But that was like the only thing I really cared to share. And I think that kind of came with a little bit of comparison of other friends' parents. They're like, oh, like that dad always like that would be really cool to have him as a dad, or oh, that would be really cool to have her as a mom, for like very specific things, you know, like, oh, Mr. W really knows how to work on cars. I wish I knew how to work on cars. I bet if he was my dad, he would show me. Or hunting. Like, we never grew up hunting. I don't really like fishing. I know you took us fishing. I didn't actually like fishing. I really wanted to go hunting, though. So I was like, oh, Mr. Conley, or, you know, Mr. Duda is like, oh, it'd be really cool to have a dad who takes me hunting. Or, like, on, like, the mom's side, like, Mrs. Kengor's, like, super exercise go-getter, like, kind of in the morning, like, oh, like, that'd be kind of crazy cool to have, like, Mrs. Kengor's, like, always up and at it like that, too, you know, as a mom. But then it definitely translated to then looking for those things and not having them, so then getting more upset with you guys rather than seeing what I actually do have in you guys as parents. And then that kind of lended itself to, well, then because you don't have a couple of things that I would kind of want, then I'm not going to bother sharing some of these extra details, because like, oh, you're not living up to exactly the kind of perfect parent I would like. Or yeah, other like personality things like, oh, well, I wish you would get less upset here, or I wish you would care about this way less than you do. Those parents don't seem to care at all when their kids come home late at night or any of that kind of stuff. Like, why can't you guys care less about that? And instead of like being grateful. But I think that changed dramatically by mid to end of college, because I would just talk to so many friends, and so many of my friends had either divorced or just like bad parents, that I realized like, holy cow, I have such good parents. And I mean, and so many of my friends now and monks in the monastery have all told me like, you have some of the best parents we've ever met. Both of you guys in different ways. I've had so many friends and monks have said that. And it just proves to me, and in the monastery too, so many monks have divorced parents, or one parent who hates the fact that they're a monk. Never had to worry about that a day in my life. So definitely now it's like completely changed. But yeah, definitely like that time in high school, and I think that was even almost part of the reason why I wanted to be a biochem major, was like, one, prove it even more, but I had some of those parents who I was like really looking up to, saying like, oh, I'm assuming because you're homeschooled or because how involved your parents are and you were in the church, you're going to study like theology, right? And I'm like, no, I'm going to prove to them that I'm not. Just like the way they would assume my parents would make me. Like, I'm going to be something completely different from them.
Yeah.
But now, as it turns out,
understand
I
that.
study philosophy and theology all the time, and it's way more enjoyable than biochemistry. So,
That's good. That's good. Well, one thing I'll say about if you don't mind, I'm going to respond to something you said, Nate, for both of you, though, missing you. I I'm like that too with my own family. When I went in the Navy,
yeah.
I would miss my mom and dad, a little bit, and give them a call now and then. But if you become a parent, it's different with children.
I bet. Yeah.
And or you probably shouldn't have kids because if you don't miss your child, then you aren't going to attend to your child. And if you're not attending your child, I mean, like I said, I might have been absent for whatever reasons sometimes in the moment, but I always attended to you guys the way a dad should. And maybe not. I don't want to like the words always and never, so I won't say always. Generally,
you consistently did. Yes.
Consistently,
yes.
And so, and then as they grow, and then they grow and they move out, you will miss them. At the same time, you want them to be their own person, like you're speaking of when you're at college. It's a tough kind of like really two sides of the same coin kind of challenge.
That makes sense because a part of I know this whole discussion is kind of about what it's like to parent with kids when they grow into adults. Part of what's been interesting to happen as I've grown up is more and more understanding y'all's perspective, because obviously I'm not a parent yet, I'm not even married, but it's just interesting that when you're a kid, your parents have these ways of doing things and these tips that they give you or ways in which they try to love you, which sometimes aren't always appreciated by a kid, or you're like, I don't even understand why mom and dad feel this way, like why can't they just be more chill about this, why can't they just not be hard on me about this or that. But then as you get older, you realize like that makes a lot of sense. Like for one thing, there's some simple things like that you just see the wisdom in what your parents were telling you all along that you couldn't have seen when you were little. The most extreme simple example people always bring up, like I brought up earlier, is broccoli, or just like eating healthy food. Like when I was younger, I'd be like, why do they want us to eat healthy food? Now, I do not want to eat sweets that often, and I'm like, oh yeah, health is so important. But also getting a little closer to being the age of an adult or a parent, and now seeing, and now in Tom and in Sarah, the love that they have for their kids, and this is someone a little closer to my age, and seeing how much they love their kids and they want them to be safe and always healthy and happy, I now can understand a little more why you guys did some of the things you did that I just couldn't understand when I was a child. So I think missing people is right in that line of things that when you're younger, you kind of feel independent. So you might love somebody and know that you care about them intellectually, but not really have an emotional tie to them. But then when you're married to somebody, you've grown up and now you have this bond with someone, then you really miss them when they're separate from you. And then when you have kids, I imagine it's kind of an extension of your marriage, because they're the fruit of your marriage. So then it's just even more strongly when they're pulled away from you, you miss them. So that's been just kind of cool for me growing up and being like, oh, now I see why parents do some of the things they do.
Well, sometimes as a parent, you don't know why you do the things you do, because it's a lot of it is just trial by fire. You know, it's an experiment because, the church, requires you to have 6 months preparation for marriage, for something to last lifelong, like 6 months, and
that's
that
all?
preparation can vary greatly. If you're going to be a teacher, you have to go to college for at least 4 years, and a lot of times now you need to go on for a master's degree.
Those are just
to be
careers.
A monk and a priest, you spend years before you took
vows.
solemn vows, and then you have more time and before you can be ordained as a priest. You're just like, okay, and then when you have a child and you go home and you're like, okay, now what do we do? There's they don't have an instruction manual that, comes with you. Okay, you do this now, and then when they're a year, you do this. And, it's just like, wow, okay, here we are. Well, what did your family do? Well, what did your family do? I don't know. This worked well, this didn't work well. Okay, we'll try that. We see this family over here, like, your siblings that were older with kids, like, oh, I don't think we want to do that. But... and it's just like, wow, here we are.
Yeah.
So.
I remember.
It's always a journey.
Right.
Hearing it talk about parenting, it's like you could be parenting like at this level, and like one of your kids only needs to be parented at this level. So like you think you're doing amazing, but it turns out your other kid needs to be parented up here, and you just kind of miss that. And that's like, again, having every kid is they're similar, but they are not carbon copies. It's just like, well, we did everything exactly the same with this kid. Why are they acting totally different here?
It's a new thing every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the last question, to like shift that last one into a positive note, then whether it's a memory or a time or like something maybe you're very proud of how you parented, or a memory of the family that like you still see bearing fruit in relationship even though we're adults. Because you can have like memories like, oh, when they were 8, like that was so awesome, like that was really good. But like to only have that, because they're 8, and that it doesn't really translate now that we're 27, 21, whatever. But like something that, okay, yes, that was strong, that was good, and it continues to be bearing fruit, and we see the growth in that even now, and that might be like a place of, continued development in a relationship even as we become adults.
I feel like this would be a nice question just to hear mom and dad's take.
I agree. Yeah.
Can I go first this time?
No, go ahead.
Has she gone first every single question?
Yeah, I can go first.
So-
Okay. Well, the first thing I would think of is, Tom would tell me that he might be going on a date or something with some young lady when he was in Virginia. And I'm like, so how'd it go? He's like, I don't know. It just, he never felt great about some of those. I said, well, go sit in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And I really feel strongly you'll find your wife by doing that. I said this at his wedding, and I wasn't prepared because it's the only thing I could think of, and I knew it was something that was true.
Oh, yeah, I remember at the reception, they're like,
Yes.
Oh, Dad, you're going to do a speech
Yeah,
too,
he
right?
walks up to
It's
me
like,
like-
oh, okay.
He said, we were supposed to tell you already. I said,
They told him like
Classic.
five
Love you,
minutes.
Tom and Joe, but you do that sometimes.
That's well, mainly
halfway
that's
through
classic
Mr.
Tom.
Young's
Yeah, that's
talk,
true.
he comes up and says something.
Yes,
So,
you got about 5 minutes to prepare. Yeah.
Yeah, he had like the whole thing written up, and they're like, "And now, Dad," and like, "Hey, wait, what?" Hey.
so the only thing I think of was that, and it's because it's real, so he started visiting the Blessed Sacrament at least every time we went to Mass, and like now there's a crowd that does this.
Yeah.
It's awesome, but he did that regularly, and after Mom picked up what would be his future wife on our way to church in our Honda, I guess you said.
Yeah.
Would see both of them there. Like every time he would visit, both of them would be there.
Mm-hmm.
And he married her, and they're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That is, you think, that what better place to find your wife than on the way to church when you've been praying for her at that church for years.
He showed us, like, you've been praying for one? Here, we'll pick her up on the side of the road. So there's plenty of other things I could say. That's the first thing, and I'm going to just stop.
I like that.
That's fair. Yeah. That's really good. And it's obvious how that good thing continues to bear fruit nowadays because
absolutely.
they're married, they have a beautiful marriage, and they're quite literally bearing more fruit there.
Yeah.
Literally.
Third child on the way.
Ucha!
Yeah, okay. For whatever reason, Philip just named the child Ucha. Don't know where he got that name from.
He started making gang names for us.
Yeah, he calls them gangster names. None of
Yes.
them sound... Yeah, we all have one. What's
Well, he
yours?
didn't come up with the gangster names on it.
Tom said, what's a gangster name? Give me a gangster name, and he came up with one for Tom. I don't know what it
But
is.
now he says, like, Mimi, your gangster name is blah, blah, blah. And he has some gangster name for me and you. But anyway, the new baby's gangster name is Ucha, which sadly is not gender specific because we still don't know what it is. They know what it is, so...
Spam. That's what. Yeah. Everyone who's listening to this or watching this, spam our brother and sister-in-law to make them tell us if they're having a boy or a girl now.
Wholeheartedly.
We just want to know.
All right, beautiful. Your turn.
Mama.
So what I thought of first was the apostolate, going to Catholic Family Land every year
Yeah,
since 2007,
yeah.
and just how impactful that has been, year to year. The weeks that we're there, even though we joke that, we go there to Catholic Family Land and then we never see each other as a family, which isn't totally true. I mean,
No.
we
There were
Dude.
some weeks that was more true than
It's
Yeah.
not totally true.
right, totally.
You'd see us
It's true
when we
a
got
lot.
back at 11 p.m.
Yeah. but just how it continues to be a point where we reconnect. And, everybody still wants to go, even as adults. And, Sam, now you're able to bring your vocation there. So that is a different element of it. And then, being able to bring the next generation, bringing our grandchildren there. And they already love it. Philip loves going there, being there. And, Tom and Johanna now are building a community with people from Family Land, seeing that continue to grow. And just that there's even more potential, I think.
Yeah.
From that, as our individual family and, bringing other people, whether it's bringing them to, Catholic Family Land, to the Apostle for Family Consecration, or just bringing them into the family, into our family and, encouraging them in their family journeys.
Yeah.
No,
that's cool.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about the same thing when we were at Family Land this year for our own trip, because I was kind of pondering the fact that I think about 5 years ago, I expected, okay, this was really nice for so many years. Already by that point, we've been going for almost 15 years. I was like, it's been nice. We've gone every year as a family to Family Land and get to spend time together for a week, doing these fun things, doing sports, going to Mass together. But even back then, in 2018 or 2019, I was kind of getting the sense this is probably wrapping up. Like, we're growing up. Sam's joining monastery. He's not going to be able to go probably much. Tom is going to go have his family. They're going to be busy doing their own things. Sarah is grown up too. She has her own things that keep her busy throughout the summer. We're probably done seeing each other consistently here at Family Land. But then every year since then, somehow it's managed to happen that everybody shows up for at least a few days, And even this year, everybody in the family was there for at least 2 days. And it's like consistently, no matter how old we get, it's become consistent foundational place where we can meet up as a family, and it's just cool because I did not expect that to continue so long, and it doesn't seem to show any signs that it's going to stop anytime soon. So
no, maybe
and like
in
you
a
said,
few years we'll need 2 cabins.
In a few years, it'll just get bigger, and that's what's so cool is now the friends we grew up with there, who we got to see every summer, or the friends that Tom worked with on staff. Like now they're having kids and they're also coming back, and so their kids are just going to start growing up and just repeat the cycle. So no clear end in sight.
I'm glad you brought that up because it was your mom's idea to go to begin with. She found a flyer and said, I want to do this next year. I'm like,
everybody else.
Okay.
Everybody else was skeptical because nothing sounds cringier than Catholic Family Land. Like that's the cringiest title for a place ever. I'm sorry. I think they should have changed that years ago. Wonderful place, amazing place, one of the best places we've ever been to, but terrible name. Just sounds like some Catholic roller coaster park where the water's like
or it sounds like a cult.
And in a way it is. No, but no, it just sounds
if it was
weird.
only called the Apostolate for Family Consecration, which is what it really is,
nobody
it would
go there.
not sound like a place you would go to.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
they have to.
It is.
Well, I'm just saying,
It's
kudos.
catchy. It works.
It does. That's why I always like just calling it CFL.
Yeah.
If someone wants to
CFL
ask
is good.
what it means, then we can very privately tell them. But I'm just saying, kudos to Mom for seeing that flyer and being willing to go to a place with kind of a cringy name and bring all those kids when not all those kids were really eager to go, and then now we realize we love it. So
To be honest, we thought maybe like 30 or 50 people would be there, and then they have a Mass on Saturday. There's like 700 people there. We're like,
It was.
what is
unexpected.
this?
it feels like it's in the middle of nowhere too.
Yes.
You're like, where are we? We're in the boonies. Are we past like some rundown
There's a
barn on
balloon
our
with
way
a
there?
old sign.
Yeah.
The first one. Yeah. Oh, and the
Are we
trailers.
lost? Yeah. Yes. So,
The water slide was there too.
but it all
Water
worked
slide was
out.
there.
And the point is,
Shouldn't have got rid of that.
it's a good place.
They actually did get rid of it. 20 broken
Injuries are
bones.
piled
Yeah, the
up.
water slide was the number one liability of that place. The only reason that like they didn't get sued by multiple people was probably just because it is kind of like a cult that when you enter into the place, you're like, we'll accept everything here. Like we're all friends here. You get a few concussions on the water slide, it's fine. But eventually they had to cut that off. But it's a good place. You should visit.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so thank you all for joining us for another episode of All Good in the Brotherhood. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for joining us. It's awesome to have you.
Our pleasure.
And if you have any maybe questions about, okay, well, I want to work on that dynamic relationship with my adult children, or children with your parents. If you kind of been estranged from your parents now that you're in your 20s or whatever, don't wait around for something all of a sudden magically to change, because every day that we perpetuated it's one day harder to turn it back around. Or if you have glory stories you want to share about awesome memories with your parents, or parents that you have with your children, we want to hear those too, because witness of the family is what changes the world, not witness of bums. So,
Yeah, super true.
so yeah. Thank you all. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Like the channel, subscribe to us. Yeah, we're going to be doing new awesome things to the podcast as it continues to grow. So be on that train before it pulls out of the station.
And keep leaving those comments, even the edgy
Even
ones.
the ones that
This
people-
dude
where
gets a
people
lot of
tell
hate
me
comments. They're so
that
funny.
I am a so-called monk or I'm a corrupt monk. We take those too.
They're entertaining too. They give us a good laugh. So
They do. They do.
leave the comments.
All right. Adios.
Peace.
Thanks be to God.